Dawn broke gently over the eastern hills, painting the sleeping farm in hues of amber and rose. The rooster, Aurelio, stretched his wings as the first light touched his perch atop the weathered barn. For 15 years, he had announced the arrival of each new day, his voice cutting through darkness with such certainty that the farmers had long ago abandoned their alarm clocks. His crow was more than noise. It was a promise, a covenant with the sun itself. Aurelio took a deep breath, feeling the cool morning air fill his lungs. He closed his eyes, savoring this moment of perfect silence before his daily duty. Then, with practiced precision, he threw his head back and released his signature call, a three-toned melody that echoed across the valley, waking farmers, chickens, cows, and even the old dog who slept by the farmhouse door. Another day begins, he thought with satisfaction as the farm stirred to life below him. But something felt different this morning. As Aurelio gazed toward the horizon, he noticed dark clouds gathering in the distance, rolling and churning like an angry sea. A cold wind brushed against his feathers, carrying the unmistakable scent of approaching rain. The other animals sensed it too. The sheep huddled closer together. The horses grew restless in their stalls, and even the normally placid cows seemed to low with concern. "There's a storm coming," whispered Elena, an elderly hen who had been Aurelio's friend for many seasons. "They say it will be the worst in 50 years. Aurelio's chest tightened with an unfamiliar sensation. Fear. Not the momentary fear of a fox or a hawk, but something deeper. A fear of failing at the one thing that defined him. "What if," he began, his voice uncharacteristically small, "what if my crow isn't heard through the thunder? What if I can't wake the farm tomorrow?" Elena clucked sympathetically, but offered no reassurance. Everyone knew the rooster's call was the heartbeat of farm life. Without it, chaos would ensue. Feeding schedules disrupted, fieldwork delayed, the entire rhythm of the farm thrown into disarray. As the day progressed, the clouds advanced like an invading army. By midday, they had swallowed the sun, casting the farm in premature twilight. The farmers hurried to secure loose items, shepherd animals into barns, and batten down whatever might blow away. Aurelio watched it all from his perch, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him like a physical force. "I've never failed before," he thought, "not through rain or wind or cold, but this is different." That night, sleep eluded him. He perched in his usual spot in the barn, listening to the rising howl of the wind and the first heavy raindrops hammering against the roof. Thunder rumbled in the distance, each boom closer than the last. Occasionally, lightning would illuminate the barn interior, revealing the huddled forms of sleeping animals, all counting on tomorrow beginning as it always had, with his call. "What if I'm not loud enough?" The question tormented him. What if, for the first time, I fail? The storm reached its full fury around midnight. Rain lashed against the barn like liquid bullets. Wind screamed through every crack and crevice. The entire structure groaned and swayed. Aurelio had never experienced such violence from the sky. It was as if nature itself was challenging him, daring him to try to be heard above its terrible voice. In the darkest hour before dawn, when the storm seemed to have consumed the entire world, something extraordinary happened. A small sparrow, blown off course by the gale, crashed through a gap in the barn roof and tumbled to the floor, wet and disoriented. Aurelio hopped down from his perch to check on the tiny visitor. "Are you hurt?" he asked. The sparrow looked up with bright, fearless eyes. "Just shaken," she replied, shaking droplets from her feathers. I was traveling to the southern forests when this storm caught me. I've never seen anything like it. Nor have I, Aurelio admitted. And tomorrow, I fear my voice won't carry through this chaos. For the first time, I might fail at my duty. The sparrow cocked her head curiously. You're the farm rooster, aren't you? The one who announces the dawn? Aurelio nodded, surprised that his reputation had reached even the traveling birds. I've heard stories of your voice, the sparrow said. They say it carries for miles, that farmers set their watches by your reliability. That was before this storm, Aurelio said glumly. Listen to it. It's drowning out everything. The sparrow hopped closer. May I share something I learned during my migrations? Something that saved my life many times? Aurelio nodded, curious despite his despondency. When flying against strong headwinds, the sparrow explained, most birds try to power through with frantic wing beats. They exhaust themselves and often fail. But the wise flyers understand that force isn't the answer. Technique is. She demonstrated a peculiar breathing pattern. Slow, deep breaths followed by controlled exhalations. We call it storm breathing. It calms the mind and focuses the body's strength where it's needed most. How could breathing help my crow be heard through this storm? Aurelio asked skeptically. Your voice doesn't come just from your throat, the sparrow explained patiently. It comes from your entire being. When fear scatters your energy, your voice weakens. But when you gather your strength through breath, you can project your true voice even against the fiercest winds. For the next hour, as the storm continued to rage, the small sparrow taught the much larger rooster how to breathe. Truly breathe, for perhaps the first time in his life. How to draw air not just into his upper chest, but deep into his body. How to hold that breath, letting it infuse every feather with energy. How to release it with intention rather than habit. Before you crow, the sparrow instructed, take 3 storm breaths. Feel the power gather in your center. Then, when you call out, do it not from fear of failure, but from certainty of purpose. If you've ever felt that moment of doubt before a crucial performance or task, write the word breathe in the comments so you'll remember this lesson when you need it most. As the first hint of dawn approached, though invisible behind the storm clouds, Aurelio felt a familiar stirring. The time had come. The little sparrow nodded encouragingly from a nearby beam. Aurelio closed his eyes. The storm still howled outside, perhaps even stronger than before. Rain pelted the roof like 1,000 drumming fingers. Thunder shook the very foundations of the barn. He took his first storm breath, slow, deliberate, filling his entire body with air. He held it, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. Second breath, deeper still, his body expanding with the power of his intention. Third breath, complete, perfect, connecting him to something beyond himself, beyond the storm, beyond even his duty. For a moment, he touched the eternal rhythm that had called roosters to announce the dawn since the beginning of time. And then, Aurelio opened his beak and released not just a crow, but his entire being. A sound that came not from struggle or fear, but from absolute certainty. It cut through the storm like sunlight through clouds, vibrating with such clarity and power that it seemed to momentarily silence the thunder itself. In the farmhouse, the farmer sat up in bed, smiling with relief as he heard the familiar call cutting through the storm's fury. Right on time, he murmured, reaching for his boots. In the fields, rainwater diverted around newly dug irrigation channels, saving the crops because workers were able to wake and complete their emergency preparations. In the chicken coop, the hens settled back into their nests, the familiar sound reassuring them that the world's order remained intact despite the chaos outside. Aurelio himself was most surprised of all. As his call echoed back to him, he realized that the storm, rather than diminishing his voice, had actually revealed its true strength. The resistance of the wind and rain hadn't defeated his purpose. It had refined it, distilled it to its purest form. "That," said the little sparrow with quiet admiration, "is what we call singing your truth." The storm continued for 3 more days. Each dawn, Aurelio practiced his storm breathing and released his call into the tempest. Each time, it carried across the farm with unwavering clarity. Some later claimed they heard him from the neighboring village, a full 2 miles away. When the clouds finally parted and sunlight reclaimed the sky, the farm had weathered the historic storm better than any other in the valley. The farmers credited their preparedness, the solid construction of their buildings, and pure luck. But the animals knew better. They had been guided through the darkness by the steadfast voice of a rooster who had learned to sing even louder than his fears. The little sparrow stayed for a few more days before continuing her journey south. "Will you come back next season?" Aurelio asked as they shared corn kernels on the last evening. "Perhaps," she said, her eyes twinkling. "But I suspect you won't need my lessons anymore. You've discovered something most creatures never learn, that our greatest strength often lies hidden behind our deepest fears." As seasons passed, Aurelio taught his storm breathing technique to the younger roosters. He showed them how to find their true voice, not just in their throats, but in their entire beings. He taught them that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. And on peaceful mornings, when the dawn arrived without challenge from wind or rain, Aurelio still practiced his 3 storm breaths before greeting the day. For he had learned that the technique wasn't just for emergencies. It was a way of approaching every moment with full presence and power. Years later, when a new generation of animals populated the farm, they still told stories of the great storm and of the rooster whose voice never faltered. They spoke of how, in the darkest hour, when the tempest was at its worst, his call had been at its strongest, a reminder that sometimes we discover our true voice only when everything else has been stripped away by the storm. Remember this, dear listener. The strongest voice is not the one that has never known fear, but the one that sings despite it. Your fear whispers that you might fail, but your courage answers with a song that carries farther than you know. Like Aurelio, you too can learn to gather your strength through the storm breath, to center yourself in moments of doubt, to speak your truth when chaos surrounds you. For the mightiest storm may rage, the loudest thunder may crash, but it cannot silence the voice of one who has found the courage to sing from the depths of their being. If this story resonated with your own journey through life's storms, subscribe to Storybox Sage and share it with someone who might need to be reminded of their own powerful voice. Remember, fear does not silence those who have the courage to sing.